All right, here is a video for section 3.4. This is practice A. And as you can see, we have the quadratic formula. So we're still solving quadratics. We're still solving ones where there's an x squared in it. And sometimes you can factor, sometimes you can use square roots, sometimes you can do completing the square. But all the time you can use quadratic formula. You can always get your equation equal to 0. Find an A, a B, and a C, and if they're not there, then they might be a 0, but A can't be 0, but B and C might be 0. You can put B and C for 0, and then you can always solve it with quadratic formula. So this is a way that's going to work every time. So if you're ever not sure, you could always use the quadratic formula and always be safe. So we're going to be using this formula a lot, and you're probably not going to be able to fit all your work onto the worksheet itself. Your own piece of paper will probably be better. I'm going to work on most of the odds, and then your job will be to finish the evens and then finish the puzzle, and that's most of your day. There's a little bit of delta math for day 12, but there's only a few problems. So, all right, let's take a look at number 1. Okay, so I'm going to tell you on the worksheet what we should do on the worksheet. Not that we can like show all the work or anything like that, but it would be a good idea to label A, B, and C. So like in number 1, the A is going to be a 1, the B is a 9, and the C is a 4. So it might be a good idea to label some of these. This would be your A, this would be your B, this would be your C. Number 5, you're going to want to get it equal to 0, so you're going to need to subtract 4. Or actually, it would be better if A is not negative. So it would be better if we added 3x squared to both sides and subtracted 5x on both sides. So you would have 3x squared minus 5x plus 4 equals 0. Now you have your A, your B is negative 5, and then C is 4. Okay, so that would be the best. The general rule is that A should be positive. It will help a lot if A is positive. So I would add 7x to both sides. So you'd have 0 equals, we'd have 2x squared plus 7x and then plus 9. So your A is 2, your B is 7, and your C is 9. So I would probably label those first. So just so I know A, B, and C. All right, let's go to number 1. I'm going to work out here. So I'll leave it right like that so you can see the workout in this area. So number 1 right there. So we've got x equals the opposite of b. So it's going to be a negative 9 plus or minus the square root. Let me kind of keep the formula there too so you can kind of see both at the same time. Okay, so it's opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared. Now b is 9, so 9 squared minus 4 times a. A is 1, and c is 4. And that's all under the square root, and then that's the whole thing is going to be over 2 times 1, 2 times a. So we're going to just work our way down. Negative 9 plus or minus square root, and then you've got 81 minus 16. 81 minus 16 is, we're going to need to put in our square root. So we have negative 9 plus or minus, and 81 minus 16, that's going to be 65, and over 2. Now 65 can't be broken down any perfect squares, so that is going to be your answer right there. This will be your x value. You can leave it in radical form like that. So that was the first one. let's look at the 3, because I'm just doing the odds. You're going to go back and do evens. Okay, so 3. Let's move it up a little. We've got x equals, and we've got the opposite of b. Now b is 12, so negative 12 plus or minus square root of b squared, which is 12 squared, minus 4 times a is 2, and c is 18, all over 2 times 2, which is 2a, so a is 2. So now it just comes down to simplifying. So you're going to get negative 12 plus or minus, and 12 squared is 144. And let's see, that's negative 4 times 2 is negative 8 times 18. So if we do 18 times 8, that's going to give us 64 carry 6, so 144. So 144 minus 144, ooh, that's going to be a 0 over 4. 2 times 2 is 4, so x equals negative 12, and we don't need anything inside the square root because the square root of 0 is just 0. So you're actually going to only have one answer. It's going to be negative 3.
Woohoo.
Number 5. Let's swing over to this side. Well, you can do it on your own piece of paper. I'm just going to do it somewhere where you can see it. Number 5, now remember we rewrote number 5. So that a was 3, b was negative 5. So the opposite of negative 5 is positive 5. Plus or minus square root of b squared. So negative 5, we got to square it. Minus 4 times a. We know a is 3. And c is 4. All over 2 times a. And 2 times 3, because a was 3. So now if we solve it, we get 5 plus or minus square root of 25, because negative 5 times negative 5 is 25. And then negative 4 times 3 is negative 12, so negative 48 all over 6. So you're going to get 5 plus or minus, and this is going to give us a negative 23 inside of the square root. But we just learned about the imaginary numbers when there's a negative inside of the square root. So that's going to come out as an I, and then radical 23 will be positive over 6. So that would be your answer there.
Would be nice. Root.
Okay. Let's put the equal sign in a better place here. There's equals. Okay, so that's your whole answer right there for 5. Let's go to 7. We'll move 7 over here. Okay, so 7, we know a is 2, b is 7, c is 9. So opposite of b would be negative 7. So x equals negative 7 plus or minus square root. Now b is 7, so 7 squared minus 4 times a. A is 2 times c is 9. All over 2 times a, which was 2 times 2. So now we can simplify. Negative 7 plus or minus, and 7 squared is 49, and negative 4 times 2 is negative 8 times 9 is negative 72 all over 4. So we're going to have another negative radical here, negative 7 plus or minus, and we're going to get 23 again, it looks like, negative 23 all over 4. When you subtract. So let's see, we're going to get negative 7 plus or minus I radical 23 over 4. That will be your x. So that was 1 through 7. Now let's move to 9 and 11. Just says find the discriminant and describe the number and type of the solutions. Okay, so let me just give you the little rundown on the discriminant. The discriminant represents this radical right here. Okay, radical. So if you notice, when the radical came out positive, we had the two answers, plus or minus. When the radical came out as a 0, we only had the one answer down here, which was -3, because that was a 0. So positive, two answers. 0 came out 0, one answer. Negative means you have imaginary answers. Two of them, but they're imaginary answers. So those are the types you might get. So if we look at 9, and this one we can probably do the work right in the paper, because it's just the square root. So square root of b squared, which is -4 squared, minus 4 times a is 1, times c is also 1. Okay, so you need to get radical 16 minus 4, which is radical 12. So that's just going to have two real solutions. Number 11, let's see, we're going to need to, I can slide that in underneath it. Okay, so b squared would be -3 squared minus 4 times a is 3 times c is 18. So you're going to get a negative number here because you're going to have 3 squared is 9. 12 times 18 is a big number. Let's see. 12 times 18. Let's do that real quick on my calculator. 12 times 18. You get 216. So 9 minus 216. So this is just going to be two imaginary solutions because it's negative. So two imaginary solutions. Okay, so that's your discriminant. Let's see. We're not going to do 13. Okay, so we can get rid of that one. So you can, no, that's that one. So let's see. Find a possible pair of integers for a and c so that the quadratic equation has the given solutions. Okay, so we want one real solution. So one real solution, your discriminant would have to be 0. So we would need to make 8 squared minus 4 times a times c equals 0. So 64. We would need the 4 times a times c to also be 64. So technically you could have them all be 4s because 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. 4 times 4 is 16 times 4 is 64. That would give you 64 minus 64, which would be one solution. Now, that's probably not the only answer that would work because you could probably do 4 times 2 is 8, and then C could also be 8 because 8 times 8 is 64. So these could both be 4s. This could be a 2, and that could be an 8. Either way, that works. It's got to multiply to 16 is what it has to happen. Two imaginary solutions would just have to be where the square root would be negative. So just show me some two numbers that'll make the square root negative. Okay. That has to given solutions. We're going to go skip that. We don't need to go backwards. Solve the quadratic equation using the quadratic formula, then solve the equation using another method. Okay, so let's look at 19. Okay, here's A, here's B, here's C. Oops, you guys didn't see that one, so hold on a second. Move it up. Okay, so 19, you have A, B, and C right there. So let's first solve it with quadratic formula. So A is 4, B is negative 13, and C is 3. So we have x equals, opposite of B would be 13, plus or minus square root of negative 13 squared minus 4 times A is 4 times C is 3 all over 2 times A. So we're going to now simplify that. So 13 plus or minus square root, let's see. We are going to get 169 for the 13 squared. 4 times 4 is 16 times 3 is 48. So subtracting 48 over 8. So x equals 13 plus or minus. So let's see, that's going to be 121 inside of the square root over 8. Now 121 is a perfect square. So that does actually equal 11. So it's going to be x equals 13 plus or minus 11 over 8. So plus or minus means you got 13 plus 11 over 8, and you got 13 minus 11 over 8. So you get two possible answers. So the first one is 24 over 8, which is 3. Second one is 2 over 8, which is 1/4. So your two answers were a positive 3 and a positive 1/4 for number 19. So we would need to, they're asking you what's another way you could have solved that. So we have our quadratic formula. Okay, we don't know if this is actually going to factor or not when we get this problem. So this is actually the safer way to do it. It does take a little bit of work. You can see the steps that it takes. We simply could have factored it though. And since there is a number in front of the x squared, we would have to have used a star method for factoring. A star method has the first number times the last number go on top. So 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 3 is 12. That goes on top. The 4x that you see in the front of it goes on the top here as well, the top sides. The bottom is the middle number, negative 13. So I need two numbers that are going to multiply to give me a positive 12 and add up to a negative 13. It's got to be negative 12 times negative 1. It's the only possibility. Negative 12 times negative 1 is a positive 12 because they're same sign as multiplied as positive. And when you add the two negatives, you keep it negative. Now you look for reducing, and 4 twelfths right here can be reduced to 1/3. So you're going to get x minus 3 on that first parentheses, and then 4x minus 1 can't be reduced. So this one's already done. So those are your two parentheses. It equals 0. So that means one answer has to be a 3, because we got to find out what's going to make the parenthesis equal 0. What's going to make this one equal 0 would be adding 1 to both sides and dividing by 4 on both sides, and x is 1/4. So 3 and 1/4, and you can see that that's the same answer we got over here, 3 and 1/4. So you could do factoring, which is a little shorter work if you know how to do the star, or you could do quadratic formula if you just want to make sure it's safe. You don't want to, because if you do factoring and it doesn't factor, you can't find two numbers that multiply to the top and add to the bottom, then you got to go back and do quadratic formula anyways. So quadratic formula might be safer, because even if it comes out even, you've already got it done and there's no risk of having to redo it or use another method. So look at the formula, work on that, see if you can get it. What you have to do is finish the evens. Okay, I crossed out 16, so you don't have to do that one. And we will cross out 22 as well. So just go to 20 and do the evens, and you'll be good to go. All right, good luck.